Hello and welcome, I'm Ellie Richardson and you're watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of this hour. Russian officials have arrived in Geneva for talks with US and Ukrainian teams aimed at ending the years-long conflict in Ukraine. US President Donald Trump hopes Ukraine reaches a deal with Russia fast. US President Donald Trump hopes Ukraine reaches with a deal as fast ahead of Washington brokered talks in Geneva. Today, Trump is pushing to end the conflict, but two previous rounds of US-mediated talks in Abu Dhabi did not yield any signs of a breakthrough. Bangladesh's Prime Minister-to-be Tariq Rahman and lawmakers are sworn into Parliament, becoming the first elected representative since a deadly 2024 uprising. President Donald Trump has said Cuba was a failed nation and called on Havana to make a deal. Washington is in talks with Cuba's highest people, just days after he threatened the island's struggling economy with what he described as a virtual oil blockage. New Mexico lawmakers passed legislation to launch what they said was the first full investigation into what happened at Zuro Ranch, where the late US sex offender Jeffrey Epstein is accused of trafficking and sexual assault. Assaulting Girls and Women, a bipartisan committee, will seek testimony from survivors of alleged sexual abuse at the ranch, located about 30 miles south of Santa Fe. US President Donald Trump said that he will be involved indirectly in high-stake talks between Iran and the US over Tehran's nuclear program in Geneva, adding he believes Tehran wanted to make a deal. Heavy rains and strong winds have lashed New Zealand in recent days, killing one man, flooding large areas and cutting power links to tens of thousands across New Zealand's North Island. French President Emmanuel Macron begins a three-day visit to India with talks focused on artificial intelligence cooperation and a potential multi-billion-dollar Dassault Rafale fighter jet deal. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirmed that the government will not help Australians linked to Islamic State militants returning from a Syrian camp. The government has stated that individuals returning from the camp will face prosecution charges in a case of law violations. According to reports, around 34 Australians, including women and children, were recently released from the camp but returned due to technical reasons. Reports suggest that the issue has sparked debate in the country, with One Nation Party gaining support by opposing the return of IS-linked individuals, calling for stricter immigration policies. We are now being joined by Yossi Kapawasa, who's an Israeli intelligence and security expert, joining us from Tel Aviv. Thank you for joining us here today on NewsX World.
My pleasure.
What are the legal and moral implications of Australia's decision to refuse government-assisted reparation of women and children linked to the IS, especially considering international law obliges countries to accept their own citizens?
Well, there is the problem of revoking the citizenship of those people that were arrested when ISIS failed and was taken over by the Kurdish forces in Syria. And some countries have revoked their citizenship, some did not. Those who did not really face now a problem, but definitely for Australia to accept these people back in Australia is a dangerous move, because we already know what happened in Bondi Beach on the 14th of December. So clearly this poses a clear security risk to absorb them back in Australia. The British have refused to do that, and I think many others refused, and most of them were moved now that they were released in Syria after the attack of the Syrian forces on the Kurdish forces about several weeks ago. Most of them were moved to Iraq and were held there. But if there are going to be, some of them have managed to escape this fate and probably reach all kinds of countries that are supposed to absorb them back.
And how does this policy, including prosecution under anti-terror law and the possibility of stripping citizenship, balance national security concerns with humanitarian obligations, particularly for children who may have been born or raised in conflict zones?
Yes, definitely a problematic issue. But as I said, to absorb them without prosecution is taking unreasonable risks, because I'm not talking about the children, of course, but about those grown-ups that were involved in ISIS activities. We haven't seen any kind of de-radicalization program executed in those camps. They left the camps as radical as they came in. And this is something that has to be taken into account when you allow these people to re-enter your country, knowing that they left on their own decision in order to join a different country. They joined the country of the Islamic State. And that's what there was on their mind. They do not want to see the system of Australia prevail. They want to see a totally different way of living in Australia. And any democracy has to protect itself against these kind of people.
What role do political dynamics within Australia, such as increased support for right-wing parties like One Nation and public debate over immigration, play in shaping the government's stance on repatriation?
I don't know exactly what's going on in the Australian politics, but definitely this is an issue that there's disagreement around it. And we can definitely understand both sides, but in the end of the day, you have to make sure that you don't you don't put your own citizens in harm's way. And the way to do that is not to allow these people to enjoy freedom in Australia. They chose not to live in Australia. They are forced back. They are not. It's not their choice. And this is something that, of course, has an impact politically, but this is not my expertise.
Thank you so much, Yussi, for being with us today. EU Commissioner Gaza Ceasefire will travel to Washington this week to attend the Board of Peace meeting. Set up by US President Donald Trump, Ceasefire will participate as an observer focusing on Gaza's ceasefire. Trump's envisions for the Board of Peace playing a broader role in resolving global conflicts, which has raised concerns, particularly with the inclusion of Russia and Belarus. Some Western countries, include Poland and Italy, have declined to join, taking a cautious stance. EU spokesperson Guillaume Mercier emphasised that the EU is not becoming a member of the board, but will observe the Gaza portion of its efforts. EU Commissioner Gaza Ceasefire will travel to Washington this week to attend the Board of Peace meeting set up by US President Donald Trump. Ceasefire will participate as an observer focusing on Gaza's ceasefire. We're now being joined back again by Yossi. Thank you for joining us back here today on NewsX World. With this, do you think the European Commission's decision to participate only as an observer at Trump's Board of Peace meeting rather than a full member signal about EU's diplomatic strategy and its concerns over governance and legal compatibility?
I think the EU has problems with President Trump being the dominant power in the Board of Peace. And they are worried that the Board of Peace is some sort of competition to the United Nations system. And that's why they don't want to see anything that might change the world order as they understand it should be. And they are worried because of that about the role of the Board of Peace. At the same time, they do want to see the plan, Trump's plan, implemented in Gaza. And the tool with which this plan is going to be executed is the Board of Peace. So they want to be involved in they probably want also to contribute and donate money for the purpose of implementing the plan. So this is a way to somehow get involved without totally endorsing the Board of Peace. That's what I think they are trying to do.
Thank you so much, Yossi, for joining us here today on NewsX World. India is hosting the highly anticipated AI Impact Summit at the Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the summit this evening, kicking off a transformative conversation on artificial intelligence. The summit, which will run until February the 20th, brings together global leaders, innovators and policymakers, including French President Emmanuel Macron, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva, and Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva to explore AI's potential in shaping the future. The summit's theme reflects India's commitment to using AI for the greater good, striving for welfare and happiness for all. With over 7,000 square metres of space, the summit provides a platform for collaboration among businesses, startups, state governments and research institutions. Additionally, international delegates will engage in discussions about exploring new opportunities within the global AI ecosystem. We are being joined by our correspondent, Thomas Porteous, who is on the ground covering the summit live from Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi. Thomas, what are the key events scheduled for day 2 of this AI summit, and which major speakers or voices are lined up today? What's the situation like on ground?
Well, thank you very much, Ellie. You're joining us from a heaving hall where we're looking at many different exhibits and exhibitions of how artificial intelligence really will play into the future, especially here in India. It's moved from having those discussions to actually making practical movements, and you can see that with some of the exhibits here. Now, as you can see, over 200,000 people are expected here at the summit, many of them flooding the halls around me. We're expected to see many international speakers today, prior to those 2 days at the end of the week, which will see some of the leaders of both geopolitics and the tech world. But of course, we have seen applied artificial intelligence majorly discussed today, whether that's education, whether that's agriculture, but the social good is at the forefront of today's discussion. Inclusive growth and social equality, moving artificial intelligence for something that doesn't just affect the corporate minority, but can indeed benefit India's 1.4 billion people and beyond. A huge focus on governance and artificial intelligence as well today. Of course, AI sparks many concerns, and so there are hopes to iron out some of those concerns, whether that be safety barriers, data protection, among other things. This, of course, is a huge publicly scaled event. As we've said, the world has its eyes on New Delhi currently, with the Prime Minister inaugurating the event yesterday and those key speakers expected later on this week and later today. We've seen the CEOs of Dell, Deloitte and other corporations speak today, but of course the speakers are only going to get better over this week. So yeah, we'll continue to bring you all the updates coming from the ground and beyond as soon as we get them here from the Bharat Mandapam. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas, for giving us that live report update. We are now being joined by Gaurav Vats, who's a cybersecurity expert, who's joining us from New Delhi to also talk more about this AI summit in New Delhi. Thank you for joining us here today on NewsX World. As this is the first major AI summit hosted in the Global South, what message does it send to the world, particularly the West, regarding the future of AI development and global collaboration?
Yeah, hi Ali. So first of all, India, when we represent AI on a global scale, right? We are the third most country which is being used. AI is being used, and we are very much competent enough to be at #1 position very soon, just because we have the largest user base of digital users. And India is not only having that user base, but we are also very strong in geopolitical vision in between US and China. So India is having a strong user base and as well as very strong on the geopolitical side. Furthermore, what AI is dependent upon, AI is most dependent upon the data, because in AI, the systems have to learn about how the things and decisions are made, for which it requires data. And India is having the enormous database across the globe. We have the richest UPI, which is already the most famous product globally, and other countries has requested us to give them our complete backbone of UPI. So we are the global leaders in today's world. Yeah.
And given the debate at the summit about a fair compensation for news publishers who content is used to train AI models, what regulatory or business models might emerge that respect intellectual property while still enabling AI innovation?
So we are already having lots of AI startups that are having their intellectual property showcased over there, and these startups are working in majority of the majority of the fields, whether it is digital governance, whether it is smart policing, whether it is defense intelligence, whether it is education, healthcare, and the most impacted area is at the agriculture domain, wherein we are using the capabilities of digital AI-based drones, which are providing the resources to the farmers, with which our farmers have upscaled their not only the business but the country's economy.
And with over 700 sessions planned under thematic working groups addressing AI safety, governance, ethical use and data protection, what concrete deliverables are expected by the end of the summit, and how might they translate into actionable AI policy at national and international levels?
You'd be proud to know that we had already launched a Gazette notification last week before the starting of this summit, and we are already launching a new framework which will give a new kind of dimension to the global AI usage. Very soon you'll see to it. Yeah.
And what can we expect in the coming days in the AI summit? What are we going to expect to come out of these?
The major business owners across the world will come up with this AI as a new direction. Our business leaders, whether it is Ambani's or Adani's or Tata's, we all are, let's say, giving them a strong backhold from the government side so that they can launch up their products, and we are not lagging behind anywhere. And you'll see some good, in fact, the latest kind of AI innovations within next 2 to 3 months only, which we are unable to, let's say, disclose it right away.
Thank you so much, Gaurav, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you.
Thanks.
Meanwhile, at the AI Impact Summit, Kartikeya Sharma, who is a member of Parliament, India, spoke about the impact of AI in healthcare and AI's ground level impact in breast cancer detection at early stages done via NXT Foundation. Let's listen to what Kartikeya Sharma had to say.
Often about disruption, scale, valuation and speed. But here is the real test of innovation. Does it stay inside the conference halls, or does it actually step out and affect people's lives, touch it intrinsically? The NXT conclave was born out of the very question. It was not designed to be another summit of speeches or an applause. It was created as a platform to discuss, track, and implement ideas that create measurable long-term impact. When we conceptualized NXT, the intention was simple: bring policymakers, scientists, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders into one room, not to exchange visiting cards, but to exchange responsibility, not to admire technology, but to deploy it. On the 1st of March 2025, at Bharat Mandapam, right here where we stand, experts demonstrated AI-enabled breast cancer detection technologies. For many in the audience, it was a breakthrough device. For me, it was a moment of clarity, personally. I must share this before I speak any further, because this is something which was very emotionally attached to me. My elder sister, for about 16 years ago, who herself was a doctor, was diagnosed with breast cancer in the 3rd stage. And this is while she was working at Johns Hopkins. And in spite of the fact that she was a doctor, she had problems in knowing that she was plagued with this problem, with this disease. So in this technology exists, why should it remain confined to hospitals in metropolitan cities? Why should awareness, access, and affordability decide survival? Because in India, the breast cancer is not only a medical challenge, it's also social silence. According to the Indian Council of Medical Research, breast cancer accounts for nearly 28% of all cancers in women in India today. And the Globocan estimates more than 2.3 lakh new cases annually, which also results into about 90,000 deaths every year.
French authorities have opened a murder investigation into the death of far-right activist Quentin Durancy, who was attacked last week by at least 6 people during a protest in Lyon. The 23-year-old succumbed to severe brain injuries, and the case is being treated as both intentional homicide and aggravated assault. The attack, reportedly linked to a clash between left and right-wing extremists, has raised tensions ahead of the upcoming municipal elections and the 2027 presidential race. President Emmanuel Macron has called for calm and for swift justice, while political tensions escalate, with both far-left and far-right groups blaming each other for the violence. Nigerian defense spokesperson says that about 100 US military personnel have arrived in Nigeria as part of an operation to target Islamist insurgents. This comes after US President Donald Trump criticized Nigeria for failing to protect Christians from Islamist militants in the northwest. However, Nigeria denies religious discrimination, stating its security forces target armed groups attacking both Christians and Muslims. US military involvement has been increasing, with airstrikes against ISIS-linked militants in December and a small US team enhancing Nigeria's intelligence capabilities. Major General Somalia Uba confirmed that the US troops will train and advise local forces, not engage in combat. Nigeria's government has called for more support, including fighter jets and munitions. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.